A great fear and panic prevail on the Russian front. There is only one reason for this: the M1 Abrams has officially unleashed hell on the battlefield. The anxiety that has been building for months has turned into a concrete reality with the deployment of Western technology. The NATO armor in Ukraine's possession is rewriting the rules of modern warfare. This is not a test, this is a definitive ruling. The Russian armored vehicles, designed with outdated Soviet doctrine, are now merely targets against the power represented by the Abrams. The fundamental difference with the Western tanks sent to Ukraine is that they prioritize crew survivability first. The ammunition in the Leopard or Abrams is stored in isolated, controlled compartments, separate from the crew. Even under the heaviest impact, the chances of the crew evacuating safely are maximized. In contrast, the Russian T-72, T-80, and modernized T-90 tanks store ammunition directly under the turret, right where the crew sits. This design flaw instantly turns the tank into a fireball upon impact, essentially making the crew compartment a coffin. The deployment of the Abrams on the front lines means every Russian commander is now reminded of this bitter truth. This video will clearly lay out the devastating impact the Abrams is having on the front and why Russian armor is rapidly turning into junk. The Abrams tanks on the front line do not wait for artillery support, they are the artillery force. The tank's advanced targeting systems allow it to hit Russian fortified positions with precision, often with a single shot. Buildings and strongholds where Russian occupiers hide are being systematically cleared out by the Abrams high-precision rounds. This is not random firing, it is a clear statement of systematic precision aimed at breaking the enemy's resistance. The success of the Abrams is not solely due to the power of a single tank. Ukraine is now executing the Western doctrine of combined arms operations. Bradley infantry fighting vehicles advance first, suppressing enemy positions and breaking their will to fight. Immediately afterward, the M1 Abrams moves in to eliminate the enemy's defensive strongpoints. This level of coordination is the exact opposite of Russia's traditional, slow, and uncoordinated operations. The war consistently demonstrates the operational blindness of the Russian army. Russian tanks, attacking Ukrainian positions, fail to notice incoming support elements, particularly the Bradleys. This blindness exposes their vulnerable sides. When the Bradley spots this gap, it does not hesitate, it locks onto the target and neutralizes the Russian tank within seconds. The subsequent extraction of Ukrainian troops and the panicked retreat of the enemy underscore the importance of the ecosystem the Abrams brings to the fight. Even Russia's most modern armor, the T-90M, is proving to be helpless against the biggest threat of modern warfare, drones. A simple FPV drone strike entering through an open hatch can ignite the ammunition, instantly turning the tank into a blazing wreck. This demonstrates how much Russian engineering has missed the mark on the realities of war. The panic spreading among Russian soldiers and commanders on the front is clearly visible in the makeshift, primitive patches on their tanks. Cope cages, extra armor plates, even chains. Russians are attempting to protect their tanks with crude additions that look like they came from a scrap heap. This desperate effort is a visual representation of the fear on the front lines. However, experienced Ukrainian drone operators consistently find a gap, a small critical weakness, regardless of the armor thickness. A simple grenade dropped through a small gap near a hatch or armor plate can cause a complete fire disaster, especially when the tank's internal fire suppression system fails to activate. This reveals that Russian engineering is not only weak but also unreliable under the pressure of battle. A more significant problem for Russian tanks stems from the lack of protection inside the vehicle. Cases are frequent where a simple landmine, which would only slightly disable or derail an Abrams or Leopard, instantly turns a Russian tank into a fireball. The reason is the unprotected ammunition stored directly beneath the crew, a flaw in Soviet design. The shockwave from a mine blast is often enough to detonate the stored rounds. Russian crewmen are aware that they are essentially sitting on a ticking bomb with every mission. This war shows how Russia's numerical advantage is rapidly eroding due to tank designs that disregard the value of human life. The superiority brought by the Abrams is not merely a better weapon, it is a smarter design that guarantees a higher chance of survival. The war in Ukraine confirms that while tanks are not obsolete, it is redefining the nature of modern armored combat. It is no longer about massed tank formations. Technology, reconnaissance, logistics, and crew training are what determine victory. Russia still largely relies on outdated Soviet doctrines, which involve committing large columns of tanks to the front without sufficient infantry cover, air defense, or electronic warfare support. The result has been hundreds of armored wrecks, ambushed by javelin and drone attacks. This is the heavy price of a historical doctrinal error. Modern armored vehicles like the Abrams are providing Ukraine with more than just better armor and sight systems. They are providing the capability to integrate tanks with infantry, drones, and artillery. A tank's effectiveness is measured not only by its own power but by the intelligence and protection system supporting it. The war in Ukraine confirms that while tanks are not obsolete, it is redefining the nature of modern armored combat. It is no longer about massed tank formations. Technology, reconnaissance, logistics, and crew training are what determine victory. Russia still largely relies on outdated Soviet doctrines, which involve committing large columns of tanks to the front without sufficient infantry cover, air defense, or electronic warfare support. The result has been hundreds of armored wrecks, ambushed by javelin and drone attacks. This is the heavy price of a historical doctrinal error. Modern armored vehicles like the Abrams are providing Ukraine with more than just better armor and sight systems. They are providing the capability to integrate tanks with infantry, drones, and artillery. A tank's effectiveness is measured not only by its own power but by the intelligence and protection system supporting it. The war in Ukraine confirms that while tanks are not obsolete, it is redefining the nature of modern armored combat. It is no longer about massed tank formations. Technology, reconnaissance, logistics, and crew training are what determine victory. Russia still largely relies on outdated Soviet doctrines, which involve committing large columns of tanks to the front without sufficient infantry cover, air defense, or electronic warfare support. The result has been hundreds of armored wrecks, ambushed by javelin and drone attacks. This is the heavy price of a historical doctrinal error. Modern armored vehicles like the Abrams are providing Ukraine with more than just better armor and sight systems. They are providing the capability to integrate tanks with infantry, drones, and artillery. A tank's effectiveness is measured not only by its own power but by the intelligence and protection system supporting it. All the evidence we have reviewed confirms that an irreversible new era has begun on the front line. The M1 Abrams is broadcasting a wave of fear and panic through the Russian army. While Russian tank losses are depleting Moscow's resources and morale, every move by the Abrams reinforces the superiority of Ukraine's just cause. In this technological aspect of the war, Ukraine is winning. The fate of this war is being determined not in a traditional tank duel, but in a test of adaptation, technological mastery, and designs that prioritize crew survivability. And currently, Ukraine, utilizing Western technology, is passing this test. What do you think? Will the full force of the M1 Abrams on the front be enough to compel Russia to retreat? Let's discuss this critical question in the comments. As you've seen from this analysis, an irreversible era of technological superiority has begun on the front lines. Every shot fired by the M1 Abrams strikes not just a Russian tank, but also Moscow's outdated Soviet war doctrine. This is the most concrete proof of a victory won by a design that prioritizes crew life, against one that disregards it. This Western technology in Ukraine's hands is rapidly changing the course of the war and intensifying the pressure on the Russian army. So, what do you think? Will the full deployment of the Abrams on the front be the decisive blow that compels Russia to retreat? We eagerly await your thoughts on this critical question and all your comments on the future of modern warfare in the comments section below. To avoid missing out on these in-depth analyses of the war's technological, strategic, and human aspects, and to be the first to learn the most current and striking information, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. See you in our next analysis.